Okay, hey everybody, we're going to go ahead and just get started. I wanted to get on here really quick and just go over nursing theory and conceptual models with you to give you just a better understanding of what's going on. I've had quite a few questions about it, and I want to make sure that you guys feel comfortable with it moving forward with your assignment. So for those of you that don't know, I'm Debbie. I'm your instructor for your course, and I'm really happy that you were able to hop on here. And if you were not able to, then I've recorded this for you. So let's just jump right in here and let's talk about conceptual models. And conceptual models are frequently used in real world situations. So kind of think of it as like, something that could happen today, that's going on today, that you could use a conceptual model to fix something or help aid in a theory or something like that. Conceptual models are adaptive, meaning that you may come up with an idea and you are thinking through it and that doesn't work. So let's say you're trying to, for example, find the proper length of a Foley catheter without it having any reflux or causing any type of bacteria or things like that to enter into the patient. And so you're going to have it at a length of, I don't know, 2 inches, right? And you notice that you're having reflux from it, and that is in turn allowing the bacteria to form. So you're going to adapt that thinking, that idea that you had, and you are going to tweak it to say, let's do 2 3/4 inches and go from there and see if that stops the bacteria from entering. And then you're going to run with it that way, but it has to be adaptable. It has to be something that's malleable. Think of it kind of like silly putty, right? Like you are able to do something with it. If you leave it out long enough, it dries and it stays. But if you keep it malleable and adaptable, it will change. So conceptual models are representations of abstract concepts and their relationships. So what does that mean? What does it mean being an abstract concept, right? It's when you think about something being abstract, you think about it being something that you can't really touch yet, that you can't really put into words, that doesn't have anything that's concrete. But you know that there are relationships that it has to other models. So it could have a relationship with a theory, but the concept of it is abstract. So I hope that makes a little bit of sense. So what I want to do here, if you can, is, oh, I can't minimize this while I'm recording. Of course I can't. Hold on. I want to get into our nursing theory. And so go into your dynamics in nursing and hop on down to, we're going to run down to conceptual models real quick. You're going to see it's right after the nursing meta paradigm. So, here it talks about conceptual models explain a particular way of thinking or a mental picture of how the theory fits together, according to the theorist. A conceptual model is the organizing structure that defines the theory. When you're also thinking about conceptual models, think about most of the time you're going to be seeing them in some type of diagram. Conceptual models are usually diagrams. They're usually thoughts that move from one thing to the other. They're if-then statements. So it's like, I have a cut on my arm and I'm going to bandage it and not clean it. If I do not clean it, this will happen. So then you're going to move to the if then statement, and you're going to learn all these different things from this concept that you have of cleaning a wound will prevent infection, right? So it's often drawn as a diagram. It's pretty simple. You know, the idea and the thought behind the concept models is just the thing. It's pretty simple to have your ideas on these paper and you structure it, whether it be a circle in the middle and bubbles out to the side, or it's a flow chart of sorts. It's pretty simple. You create an idea to solve problems. So let's think of it in terms of where we are today, right now. And we are in, you know, our COVID-19, right? We talk about that. Well, think about back in the day when the president put forth an initiative that says, okay, if this happens, which during World War II it did, they needed to have businesses and things like that stop the production of their cars and of their clothing to build parachutes and to initiate bullets and armory and things like that for our soldiers. And so the same thing is essentially happening today. When we're talking about the COVID-19, he has the ability to initiate, which some companies have initiated on their own, to be able to provide masks and ventilators for companies, for the hospitals, for the EMS, for the fire departments, for anyone that's on the front lines that are needing this equipment. They are bringing it forth. And so when you think of it in ideas of that, it was an idea created to solve a problem. So the concept model is an idea created to solve a problem. When we think of it that there's some evidence of truth. So they have a little bit of research on it, but it hasn't been fully researched and it hasn't been fully theorized. A conceptual model can have a theory in it, so it can bring in a theory of like, okay, this theorist has this theory in it, but I'm going to build upon this with my concept. And you're coming in it with the idea to make it better for the nursing community. You want to make a change or improve upon something. So when you hear about conceptual models, you're going to hear something that is maybe probable based on the evidence that you have at hand. Whereas in a theory, we'll jump back to concept models in a second, but the theory is a collection of statements that explain a relationship between two or more ideas. So let's go again back into your dynamics of nursing and go up to where it's discussing nursing theory. And it talks about how a theory maintains a central role in the evolution of the nursing discipline. It's used in our daily practices, whether we know it or not. And it is a structure of purposeful and systematic ideas that help to organize disciplinary thinking and influence practice. So what does that mean? So the difference between the theory and the concept model is that in the theory, it is very structured and it's very purposeful. And we're using it to influence our practice. Bottom line, we are looking to make things better. Think about this as when we went from hand charting into electronic charting. Someone somewhere along the way said, I have this concept, right? Concept, because somewhere out there, there is the theory of charting. So we have research and data on patients, correct?
And so they're building upon this theory by bringing in the concept of having the hand charting go to the electronic charting. And with that, they're having to look at HIPAA. They have to look at abilities to make it easier, to make it quicker for the nurses, to make it be accurate in their charting, things like that. Now, everything has its issue. Nothing is perfect, right? That's why we keep trying to build upon and make it better. So let's see. So Levine identified that students often fail to embrace nursing theory and do not fully grasp the importance of nursing theory and its relevance for practice and education. So what we really want you to try and get out of this is that you know what the theory is, and you know how the theory starts, and you know what the concept is, and you know how the concept starts. So we are using consistently theories from Dorothea Orem and consistently theories from Florence Nightingale and many of the other pioneers of nursing that came up with theories in the early times with the data to support it. Because when you think about what they were going through and what was needed in order to have these deaths not to keep happening, to work through a plague or to work through stuff, you had to keep data, and you had to keep accurate data. And so, we all can come up with a concept. We all can come up with a theory. It's whether or not you want to put in the time to gather the data and gather everything that's relevant and ready for a theory. So let's hop down to Dorothy Orem's self-care deficit theory. And let's talk about this example where it says, an elderly man recently received a total hip replacement. During the discharge process, the registered professional nurse educates the patient about many things, including activity restrictions, medications, and wound care. Let's stop right there. We know from our research that having a total hip replacement means a lot of things. It means that we are going to need help with balance, that we're going to need help with getting out of bed. We're going to need help with toilet training. We're going to need help in a number of different areas. And so we are going to need physical therapy, occupational therapy. And if you see what we're building here, we're pulling in all our multidisciplinary care teams, right? And everyone has something that we're going to bring to the table on this. And Dorothy Orem's self-care deficit theory. And so we want to make sure that we are educating our patient based upon data, successful data, and enforcing to them that this is what needs to be done in order for you to heal appropriately. So let's move on. The nurse also reviews activities of daily living, such as showering and toileting. The nurse realizes that the patient's balance may be altered and discuss fall precautions with the patient. So this is significant because we know that along with total hip replacements, there are balance issues. And if they do fall, what could happen? They could knock the hip, their new hip out of place. They could shatter something else. They could end up with an embolism. There's so many different things that could happen that we want to make sure that they are given the best possible care, that they are given the best exit care strategies, if you will, to be able to be successful in their home environment. And we know many times elderly people that come in for hip replacement, they die of something else, whether it be pneumonia for lack of movement or bacteria or something completely different. My grandmother, she fell and broke her hip, and 4 days later she died of a stroke. So we hear that so many times as nurses, and it's heartbreaking. So anytime we get to send home someone that's elderly that has had a hip replacement, I mean, we're giving them the best possible instructions to be able to gain back their independence and live successfully in their home environment. So, detailed discharge instructions are an example of moving the patient from a state of dependence on others for care to a state of independence and self-care. So just that, just exactly that. They have depended on the nurses and the physical therapy and the occupational therapy for their care in the hospital setting. And now they're transitioning to a state of independence and self-care for themselves. We'd really like to have a family member or someone that's going to care for them present so they can hear our instructions and what we're asking them to do. It's really important because we want them to be able to have success in the home setting. We don't want them to fail. We want them to continue on with their lives to the fullest. And some of the things that we might recommend would be to put a toilet chair in the shower, or to have a handle while getting up from the toilet, something that's going to allow them to continue to be independent but gain stability in their daily care. So I hope that kind of made a little bit of sense, just kind of breaking down her theory. And it's a theory because it's structured, it's purposeful, it was systematic in the ideas to help organize that interdisciplinary thinking, where we were pulling everyone from our multidisciplinary team in, and everyone has something to share to make this better, which is another reason why our teams are so very important in the nursing setting, because we as nurses, do you know how long it would take us to be able to come up with this and build this on our own? So it's so helpful to have other experts out there that can help our patient, that have worked with our patient, that know their limitations. And sometimes bringing in a social worker is really helpful for them, because sometimes, as we know, that there's depression that comes in as a part of this. And we want to mitigate anything that's going to deter them from having a successful recovery. So let's see. So there are various lenses used to view different perspectives of known nursing phenomena. Yeah, we look at things differently. We view things differently. And there are things that go on out there every single day that are seen through different ways. So I may see something one way and you may see it as another, and we may bring it together and bring our perspectives of it together, and they both may be right, and we can combine them to make something very powerful to influence change in the nursing world. So let's see. So, like, to sum this up, let's say conceptual models are simple. They're if-then statements. They're done in diagrams, and they're frequently used in real-world scenarios. So think of what we're doing right now in the pandemic that we're in, and think of how a conceptual model would come to be. With the example that I gave you was an idea created to solve a problem. So, you know, with the masks and the ventilators and things like that, local businesses and stuff are sewing masks, even though it is not a respirator mask that they need. It is a mask nonetheless, but they have access to none. So, I mean, that's kind of what you would understand in a concept model. Also know that concept models may contain a theory, but theories usually don't contain a concept model, if that makes sense. So theories are starting out on statements that explain a relationship between one or two ideas that have been researched, that have been founded, that have been, so they're past the state of the concept model already, if that makes sense. And so they are going in with very structured ideas, very systematic ideas to organize the thinking together. So think of it as like the concept model is the outline for the paper, and the nursing theory is the thesis. Like there's some in between that had to happen there. There had to be some research, there had to be some data collecting, there had to be all this to build on it. And the theory just took it all and presented it all and is like, and here, folks, is your theory. So I hope that was helpful. I've had quite a few questions. Please continue to reach out to me if you need anything. I'm here for you. I'm on off and on almost all day today and all day tomorrow, working through grading papers and providing feedback. So again, if you have any questions regarding your project that you're working on, I'm happy to be here to help. So if you want to set up a Zoom call with your teammates to be able to understand something better, I'm really happy to do that. So I hope you all are doing well and you have a great day and you're staying safe. All right, take care, everyone.